Welcome to Let's Talk Marketing and Business. She's the founder of Creative Growth, a company that intentionally creates resources, including physical spaces, for the purpose of fostering innovation and growing new business ventures. She's a professor at Drake University, where she teaches entrepreneurial management and works as an advisor for Drake University's Student Startup Hatchery and for the visiting Mandela Washington Young African Leaders. Our guest was awarded a reciprocal grant through the Young African Leadership Initiative program in 2017 to do entrepreneurial management and marketing training in Nigeria. She has more than 20 years of both theoretical and practical knowledge in marketing, business development, and entrepreneurship. I'm pretty excited to welcome Professor Laura Kinnard to Let's Talk Marketing and Business. Great to have you.
It's great to be here.
Is this your first time in Nigeria?
It is my first time on the continent of Africa.
Wow, interesting.
Not only just Nigeria, but the continent.
Okay, so what has been your impression of the people, the food? I know you've had a lot of taste of food here, so what has been your impression of the environment generally? What has been?
So I try to keep an open mind, because I think that anywhere you go, people always have ideas that precede wherever the place is, and I don't want to take someone else's impression. So I have to say, the road in from the airport was a little rough.
We've been casted.
But outside of that, I actually found the people to be so warm and inviting and friendly and helpful and just really embracing of having me come, and I've really enjoyed meeting people here and learning about everything that's happening in Nigeria. It's been great.
Impression that you'll be back in Nigeria very soon, because you've told me that you've had quite a bit of pleasant experiences, especially with the people.
Yes, actually we've already started to talk about plans to have me return in the future. So I think that as long as there's some value, I think that you can share anything. I have a lot to take home and share, actually. So it's definitely reciprocal.
And I've been going to your Instagram feed. I've seen a lot of experiences. I've seen a lot of pictures. So it's been quite a lot of experiences you've had.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me is to really try, and actually my host at Poise and Giddy Jobs, his name is Asher, and he's been very complete in making sure that I had different opportunities to see many different places I've visited, and he's aligned that really well. So, as long as I can still provide some value and some insight, I'll be back, and he's hoping to do that. And in the meantime, there's really several things that are happening here that really impressed me that I'm going to take home and share in the United States, and especially in my city. So it's really been, I don't know what I was expecting, but it's been beyond what I could have imagined.
Okay.
Yeah, it really has been.
Great. And I perceive that has sort of, I assume, that has sort of cancelled out the impression you had before coming to Nigeria, because a lot of people, when they come to Nigeria, they say they have an impression of like a bush area, places where they just kill each other and war and all starvation and all that. So it's been sort of a different impression for you, right?
Well, I think that first of all, you have to understand, people tend to think of Africa as a country. I can say that I even in my mind probably thought of Africa as a country, not as a continent. And so one of the things with the Mandela Washington Fellows and the YALI program, the group that came, they came from 18 different African countries. And so immediately it gave me perspective of the challenges that face different countries in Africa. It's completely different. It's impossible to have an impression of Africa. And I don't know if anyone has a specific impression of Nigeria. What they have is an impression of Africa, which obviously means that there's areas that are really underdeveloped and poor, and I don't know that they have a really good concept of how entrepreneurial or how advanced a place like Nigeria is becoming. So So I learned that even on the ground, just having worked with the Young African Leadership. That program is called YALI, so you can look that up. I think it's maybe in its third year of going, third or fourth. And so I'll be working with the new group that'll be, as soon as I come home, there'll be a new group that comes. So, so I think that then I already had a better impression or a better perspective before I even came, but so that's why I said so if there were anything I was going to hear about Nigeria, some people get it confused with Niger. Maybe I'm not saying that right, but the northern, right?
Okay, Niger.
Niger.
Yeah.
Okay, so see,
That's another country.
Right, but then there's that confusion. So the United States government has a lot of warnings about not traveling to Nigeria because they say it's really dangerous or all these things. But I traveled to Asia before many years ago, and the same warnings were with the Philippines and different places I went, and so you have to take it with a grain of salt. It's a huge place, so just a few small happenings can make a country put an alert out because their ultimate goal is to protect the people going there, you know. So I think the same thing would apply if someone said they were going to Chicago in the United States. Oh, there's, you know, shootings happening on every corner all day long. And I've gone to Chicago many times and not felt afraid, you know. So I understand that there's you have to come with an open mind.
Yeah, yeah. Open mind is a key word.
Yes,
That's a great segue in for our discussion proper. So you want to be an entrepreneur. The first question would be very direct. Do you think everyone can become an entrepreneur? Or is entrepreneurship meant, let me rephrase that, is entrepreneurship meant for everybody?
Well, so I think that everyone has, you know, the problem when we're really young is that the creativity gets killed in us, right? So when you meet young children, you find that there'll be all sorts of creativity, and that's probably when we should catch them to be entrepreneurial at that time. But by the time you're older, it takes a certain mind that continues to look for creativity. So I think that everyone is born with those seeds of creativity. By the time you're an adult, you have to still have a passion and looking for opportunities to be creative and create new value and be innovative. Now, being entrepreneurial minded and the business of being an entrepreneur is possibly two different things. So when you're taking on all the risk of a business and you're trying to do something on your own, that's a little bit different than having an entrepreneurial mindset within a corporation, for example. And there's a place for that, and I think there's a place for an entrepreneurial spirit even inside of a company. But the fact is, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to make a lot of sacrifices. You're going to have to be okay with risk, and you're going to really have to consider deeply whether or not you're willing to go on that journey that may take quite a bit of time, or you don't have a lot of income and all those sorts of things. So whether you're cut out for it, it can be a rough journey, you know, and it can be isolating at times, and it can be rough at times, and so you have to go into it with your eyes wide open. It's not going to be an easy road necessarily. So yeah.
I picked up a couple of things you said in your response. You pointed out a couple of traits or abilities one will need to get, and you said patience, you talked about being persistent and all that. So are there particular skills or traits one would need to develop or have to be a successful entrepreneur? So
interestingly, I also teach organizational behavior. So that's more of leadership inside of a company, or how you behave inside of a company already established. But when you look at leadership skills, someone who's a true visionary leader in a company, you're looking at a lot of the same characteristics that it takes to be an entrepreneur. So that you do need to be a good leader. because you are going to be the one that cultivates a team. Entrepreneurship is really not an individual sport. It's a team sport, okay? Meaning that even to have someone invest in your company, they prefer that you have one or two other key players that are working with you, because they know that any entrepreneurial venture is ultimately more successful when you have more than one person in it, even from the start. So you need a partner, and eventually you're going to build a team. And so that means you have to be a leader. You have to be able to pick a team. You have to be able to share your vision. You have to be able to inspire them with the same passion that you have as a founder, so that they also work at the same level that you do and align well with your vision. So that's leadership. Being a risk taker, of course, having confidence. Although I do know a lot of entrepreneurs that are kind of introverted, but when they talk about their passion, it gives them a platform to be confident, and I think you have to be able to share that as a founder and as an entrepreneur. So I also think you have to be a good communicator, you have to be a good negotiator, so really when you go down the line of trades, they align very much with the leader in any organization. Yeah, so.
I presume you spoke about employing people, having a team.
Yeah.
I know that's a very critical aspect of the whole business setup, and it's very, very critical to the success of any organization. I've experienced that myself. I know that hiring a wrong person or the right person can make or break your company.
Yes.
Are there guidelines you would advise an entrepreneur, maybe just starting? I know when many entrepreneurs start out, they tend to do a lot of things themselves, but eventually you have to hire a team for you to grow and all that. Are there guidelines you give an entrepreneur in the hiring process when they want to hire? Are there gray areas, things they should look out for? Are there sort of things they should look out for before they hire someone?
Well, you're still going to be running on a pretty small team initially. So there's a couple of things. If you look at a company like Uber, okay, so Uber's company culture went right off the rails. They were doing really well, growing really fast. They have kind of a do it and ask for forgiveness later sort of attitude. And they lost what their culture should be along the way. So they grew fast and they hired people fast. And that culture has to be established from the very beginning, because once you're building on it, it can go in a completely wrong direction if you haven't established what are the values of the company, not just the vision and the mission and your business model, but really what's the value of the founder, what will be tolerated in the organization, what makes a person align well with the company means that they believe in your value statement and that you have established a value statement from the beginning. So that can go wrong when you're growing fast and you're hiring people if you haven't established that. So the first thing is make sure that they are a good fit with the culture that you want to have going forward in the company. And also, they're going to have to be flexible. They're going to have to believe in your vision. Just like your partner or anyone that you would pick, your team going forward, really, especially when it's running lean and small and everyone's wearing lots of hats and maybe being asked to step outside of their job description, they're going to have the same passion that you do for what you're doing in the business. So I think the first thing is make sure that they align with your vision, make sure that they are flexible and are, as passionate as they can be. Maybe not as passionate as a founder, but as passionate as they can be about what problem you're trying to solve. And that they really see that there's a problem and they believe in what your solution is. I talked to a hiring manager for a company called Dwolla. It's DWOLLA, and they are in a technology finance space. They are solving the problem of high transactional costs when you're banking. So they're trying to remove banking really out of the equation altogether. And they started this company in Des Moines, Iowa. Our town, by the way, is only 300,000 people, and when you add in the suburbs, it's about 600,000 people. So our downtown core is very, very entrepreneurial. It has a very strong ecosystem for entrepreneurship. And he could have chosen to go to Silicon Valley or many other places, but he decided that Des Moines was low cost of living, easy to get around, easy to plant his flag and become a big fish in a small pond, where the media would pay attention, where the community would be supportive.
In a small pond.
A big fish in a small pond, right? Because he knew that the media would rally around that in Des Moines. And it's still the capital city of Iowa, so we have major politicians that come. What are you looking for now? And there's a lot of programming needs, so it's a very technology-based company. I said, so do you need a lot of programmers? I feel like we don't have a lot of programmers, maybe enough for the talent in the city. And the HR person said something interesting to me. They said, you know, we can really teach anyone to code. What we can't teach someone to do is be a good problem solver and a good critical thinker. So I think the other key element is you want to have good problem solvers and good critical thinkers that you invite on your initial team, because there's going to be all kinds of problems and all kinds of things that you didn't plan on. And you want to have a team that can be very agile and nimble and can think on their feet. And so I think that those first people, passion, problem solvers, critical thinkers, fit well with your culture, believe in your vision. Yeah.
Great points you've enumerated. I also want to find out, okay, you've hired someone. When do you think is right?
To hire someone?
No, not to hire someone. When do you think, a lot of people, some entrepreneurs have a problem with sacking, people from the organization. Like there's some sort of emotional attachment between the owner, entrepreneur, and the people that employ. But maybe the employee is not very productive in terms of being of value to the organization, but they have a problem of cutting that line and letting the person go. What would you advise an entrepreneur in terms of cutting it out and sacking people?
Well, first of all, sometimes hiring people that you love and know and everything is the best, and sometimes it's not. So at the end of the day, it's a business decision. And if you count heavily on your team and you're running on bare bones, small skeleton crew in the beginning, I think it's good to have a relationship and to want to grow someone and help them develop. And I would say if they are showing signs that they really want to learn and they're working, even if they're making mistakes, I think you have to allow people to make mistakes. I think you have to give them the power to do things. And as an owner, I think you have to have that faith that you're going to give it to them and you're going to let them try and you're going to let them be entrepreneurial. And if they make a mistake, it's okay. Now, if they aren't, I have a bigger problem with someone who's just not even trying. So if it's because they're afraid of making a mistake, then maybe you need to look at your own culture and decide why do they feel like that they're going to fail or they're too afraid to even try, or is it just a matter of motivation? And honestly, you don't have time in a small company to try to motivate someone to be there. That might exist in a bigger company, and there's all sorts of motivational strategies when you start working with a big team. But if they're that close to you as an owner in a small business organization, and you have to motivate them to be there. And you just have to be honest about that, and it's not personal, it's business decision. And I would think that you'd want to make the decision to move forward with someone else quickly, because you don't have time to waste to get traction and to move forward in your business. Yeah. So.
Right. Talking about moving forward and growing an organization, marketing is a very critical part of that. I know. And you also mentioned about some people being introverted. And I suppose marketing, would you say marketing is you have to have an extroverted personality to be good in marketing? if I can my question.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and I think that also you're talking about sales and marketing, right? And so there's obviously sales, especially if it's like personal sales, is one strategy in a marketing plan in terms of having a person that goes out. You can be very introverted and still run a marketing program, but it's a little bit different to be the face of the company and the one that has all the passion and not be able to go out and sell your vision. Now, like I said, most people that are introverted still can find a safe place that they can talk because they are very passionate. I think you just have to lead with your passion and not be afraid to talk about it. Typically, if it's going to succeed, you're pretty on fire about the idea. And so I think you'll find a voice to do that. I don't think it has to be some big sales pitch. I think that it's good to have an elevator pitch down so that if you have an opportunity, like a lot of opportunities don't come when we're planning them. So we could be on an elevator, we could be in a grocery store line, we could be at a networking event. We could just have somebody that happens into our life, which I can tell you happens more often than you imagine. And because you knew exactly what your company did, what it solved, what was unique about it, and you had that pretty well figured out, even a person that's pretty introverted can, on a moment's notice, give a 30-second speech if they plan for that. So if planning for it helps you get over being nervous to talk to people, but just think about it as a conversation and one that when you're asked, what do you do or what's your company about, you have an answer for it, right? And I think that'll help people get over it. But a lot of founders are pretty passionate, so they don't have trouble talking about what they do, right?
True.
Yes.
In fact, if you see them talking about their product, their service, or their company generally, you think they are really 100% extroverted, meanwhile,
and then you find out they're not.
Yeah,
I mean, I mentioned that company Joala, and I would say that Ben Milne, the founder, is not the most extroverted person in general. He's humble. He gives back a lot. He always puts himself in a position of caring about what the other person needs first, even before he ever talks about what he does. And so, but if you ask him what he does, he'd be quick to be able to tell you what that is. He just doesn't always lead with it. He often leads with, and I think that's the other way that you don't have to be salesy, especially if you're like in a networking event. The biggest thing is walk into the event with the idea that you may not find or meet anyone that is helpful to you, helpful to the other people in the room. Because you may find someone that's helpful to you that time, and maybe you won't. But what you will build is your own personal brand, people's passion for you as a person, and because you took an interest in them, and then you explain what it is that you do in the conversation, they'll remember and they'll go out, and then as soon as they meet someone that could be of help to you, they're quick to make that referral because you helped them first, right? And so I think that's the approach that you have to have, and it's not a salesy approach, but as a founder, you still have to be out there. You have to be able to be out there, right?
And I think that's a problem a lot of people get, when they get it wrong in terms of networking. They go to an event and they're thinking of, okay, my name is Daniel, I sell washes, I sell this, I sell that.
Right.
So it's not just being salesy. Try to build a relationship with the person you're talking with.
Yes,
like you say, try to find out how to help them so they'll be able to remember exactly what you do when you try to tip that in the conversation while you're having a conversation with them.
Well, they're going to remember you personally for the interest you took in them. And the other thing, though, is don't waste the opportunity when you meet someone. You know, get their contact information, get their card. Go back immediately. I don't care if it's on your phone, on your app, or back at your computer. Get on LinkedIn and immediately, or use use a card scanner on your phone. Whatever it is, you want to capture, because you're going to meet so many people. You're going to have to be out there meeting people. And so you're going to end up with a pile of cards or people's names, and you think you're going to remember, but a day from now, you're not going to remember. What was it that we were talking about? I had a conversation with 15 people. So I tell people, get the card, write what the conversation was, right on the back of the card, or I sometimes take a picture of the person, literally, and then send a note on WhatsApp or something. This is their name, this is what we talked about, so that I actually even have a visual of who that person was. But I always go back and find them on LinkedIn and connect, because now you have just expanded your network by however many other people are connected to them. So every person you meet to be a valuable connection to you. There's a young entrepreneurs convention that's its third year in, that's run by a guy named Brandon Adams. Very ambitious young man who's now traveling all over the United States doing entrepreneurship in your city. It's a film that he's pitching. So he's going around, and he started this young entrepreneurs convention, and he has been the front man for it, had the passion for it, and he's also surrounded himself with lots of other connections and people that bring value and have made it, even from the very beginning, be a good event and growing. But he invited a woman who talks about networking, and she does an interesting exercise where everyone in the room she'll go to one person with a roll of yarn, and she'll say, what's your name? What kind of reference or contact would be most important to you right now in your business that would help you the most? And they'll say, whatever it is. I need to meet someone in banking. I need to meet someone in, healthcare. I don't know what it is. Maybe even more specific than that. But then she'll say, who here in the audience is that or knows someone that does that? And, not a huge group, 100 people or so, 2 or 3 people raise their hand. She'll bring the yarn over to them. And then she'll ask them, who do you need? And then they'll bring someone. In the end, in a 15-minute experiment, you have a web of yarn in the whole room, because everyone had a connection in the room that someone else needed to know, or more than one. And so every person, even if they aren't of direct value to you, knows somebody that can be of value to you. So it's really about, just go back and make sure you stay connected, and every time you have an opportunity, ask them how it's going and take an interest in them. And, as human beings, we have a tendency to want to reciprocate goodwill. Yeah. If I come and show up with a birthday present for you, then the first thing you're going to say is, oh, I wonder when her birthday is. I'm going to have to get a present for her, right? So that's our human nature to do that.
True, right? But don't make it evident that you are giving out something in expectation.
You shouldn't be leading with that expectation, but the reality is good leaders know that is human nature, and they bank on it, right? So, absolutely.
I can break that law. The law of reciprocity.
Yeah, the law of reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
Okay, that word. So anyway.
So my next question. No. Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. My next question is necessitated by a TED Talk I watched sometime early this year by Bill Gross. In the talk, he explained 5 major points why startups succeed.
And why they
fail. And his case study was with 200 companies. So I found it to be interesting because one of the points was what I found interesting, where it was placed in. But the first one had 42%. That was timing. Mm-hmm. So the timing of a product, the timing of an idea when you introduce it to the market is, he found out that that's the most critical item in his research. Mm-hmm. The second was team and execution, came in with 32%.
Okay.
The third was the idea came in with 28%. The fourth was business model. Okay. And the fifth was funding. Okay. Funding had 14%, business model had 24%. So you have timing, team and execution, idea, business model, and funding. found funding a little. I know a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you money is not what you need to become a successful entrepreneur or to make the idea or product grow. But we know that the funding is very, very critical to the success of any business. So I found it a little surprising that it came in at the bottom of its chart with just 14%. I want to know, do you find anything surprising here? Do you think this is spot on? You know, timing, 42%, team and execution came in second, idea, tool, business model, and funding.
Didn't read this particular report, but I have spent some time on that issue of what makes businesses fail, and startups, I should say. And I remember initially, even the reports that I've seen don't put funding at the top. And funding is actually usually 4 or 5 or 6 or more places down. And I remember initially thinking the same thing, that that's surprising. Isn't it about the money? Isn't it about the money that you wouldn't be able to get going because you don't have any? And obviously at some point you have to be generating money to be able to succeed. Even if you're a nonprofit, it has to be sustainable. There has to be a model that you're bringing in donations or whatever it is. So, but I think there's some overlap in my list, in my mind. And so, and I'm not saying that it isn't spot on, I just think it might be described differently. But the list that I've always referred to, the number one reason on that particular list that startups fail is they actually don't have a customer for their product or their service. To me, that was the most shocking thing of all to hear, because I thought, how do you have an idea, do a business model, or possibly a whole business plan, and possibly invest some of your own money, possibly invest somebody else's money, and then at the end of the day, have the reason why you failed because you didn't have a customer for your product. Now, some of that could be falling under this category of timing. You know, maybe it's a great idea before it's time. You know, and I can think of some cases like that. But I really, or maybe you couldn't somehow get at the right customer. Maybe in all your research and everything was correct, but you couldn't figure out once it was going, how do I get in front of them? How do I reach them? So maybe they wouldn't be interested if they knew about you, but you're struggling with the marketing aspect. But I think in that list, they're really talking about there literally isn't a customer or enough of a customer base for that product or service to succeed. And that really comes down to people not doing good customer discovery. Idea, because in your gut, you feel like it has all of the elements of being the next great thing, or do you research it to death and talk yourself out of it and never move forward at all? And so there's these two schools that entrepreneurs just have a gut and they jump in and they take risk. And I think it's somewhere in between, you know, frankly. I think at least you need to have had interviews with people. At home we have an entrepreneurial boot camp, if you will. It runs for so many weeks. And one of the things that you have to do during that time is talk to 100 people. You have to talk to 100 people and ask them questions. Now, you try to define them as the right kind of customer that you think will be, who will want your product or service. But the initial conversations that you have with them, you actually try to avoid what you're doing altogether. You really just try. You know you're solving for a problem. So what you're trying to get the customer to say is you're getting them to validate the problem. You're getting them to say in their own words that they see the same problem that you do, that the problem is big to them, and that, and you want to make sure that you're really at the right problem, because sometimes you think you're solving for this problem, and really the bigger problem, as you've had these conversations, is this other thing over here. In which case you may pivot your whole business idea to better address the real problem that they're having. So you could be solving for a problem that maybe it's a problem, but they don't really care that much about it, or maybe they have a bigger problem, Or maybe you were wrong and that's not really their problem at all. And if your idea is solving for a problem that your ultimate market doesn't really perceive as that big of an issue, or they wouldn't, at least right now, pay a lot of money to fix it, then you're going to move forward with a project that isn't going to succeed. And so that's what I tend to see, is that we fall in love with our own ideas, and we tend to lead with them then and say, oh, so I have this really great idea and it'll fix this for you, what do you think? And of course, what's the other part about human nature? We don't want to tell somebody, especially if they're passionate and they're excited, that their idea is stupid or they wouldn't really buy it or whatever. And so if you do good customer discovery, you really are validating the problem before you ever speak about what your idea is, so that they'll be honest with you. And we also support a forum called 1 Million Cups. And 1 Million Cups is a place where startups from ideas, or maybe they're just getting going, are able to pitch to an audience of teachers, investors, community members. So every Wednesday, people show up. They show up in this little auditorium at our science center, and the person takes the stage, and they present their idea. And then they have an equal amount of time for Q&A, where the audience will say, well, do you think that's the right customer? Or what about this marketing way? Or I'm not sure if I believe in your business model. Or you should be charging more, or whatever it is. Or, yeah, your idea is kind of stupid, you know? And you have to have thick skin, because honestly, you don't want to make the very costly mistake to invest your savings and fail from the beginning because people just weren't honest with you about it. And so you really want to have people that are willing to poke holes in your idea and challenge you.
And some people, do you think they don't tend to want to accept because they believe so much in this idea, it's the next big thing, it's going to change the world. And when you tell them, come on, you have to, you look at this thing, you give them data, you give them the real truth that this is not going to be successful in the market, but it's one of this and they still go ahead because they believe so much in this idea.
Well, so it's another quandary with entrepreneurship, right? There's all these, it's a little of this, it's a little of that. So many entrepreneurs would not start their business if they listened to people that told them the idea was stupid. They would just end, right? Because there are the other people that will tell you your idea is stupid, you know, because they're not willing to think it through and they're not willing to be open-minded about it. And so if you've done all your research and you've talked to the actual customers and you've done your business model and your homework and you believe it's solid, move forward. Move forward doesn't mean you don't listen to their objections or what they're trying to say, why they make them say why they think it's stupid, and maybe try to fix some of those things. But in the end, you are the founder and you are the one with the passion, and you're the one that's going to have to keep pushing forward even when other people tell you you're probably going to fail. Now, the flip side is you should also become part of a mentorship and a community and find advisors and find people that have built businesses before you. And when you go to them, you darn well better be prepared to accept some of their wisdom, you know. And a lot of times people will go and they'll find a mentor and then they'll be, you know, I'm going to go my own way. And so, yes, you have to keep going if you feel strongly about your idea, and hopefully you do, and you've done your homework, but you haven't, so you don't want to just sway in every direction, but be open to their suggestions, because it may be the thing that saves you from making huge mistakes.
I suppose that's what mistaking is all about. When you sort of try to block out all the negatives and try to always see the positive, go ahead to take that decision, go ahead to make that investment regardless of whatever negative talk you're hearing. I suppose that's part of mistaking.
I mean, some of the things, honestly, the really big ideas, the really innovative ideas, a lot of people don't even understand them. And so you may be onto something really fantastic, and there'll be a lot of people who think it's crazy. And sometimes those are the actual ideas that become the really big ones, you know. But you just have to be really clear about what problem are you actually solving? So then it doesn't matter if some people don't understand what it is. Try to explain blockchain and cryptocurrency to someone right now, and it's probably going to be one of the biggest things. The prediction is that blockchain and everything that you can build on that foundation will change our way of living more than the internet did. So those are the kind of predictions that you need to listen to as an entrepreneur or even as an established business owner, because if things are going to be changing, you probably better be prepared for it and be able to capitalize on that. But there's a lot of people that don't even understand what blockchain is yet. So they're still learning, and yet there's some people that are already building business models on it. And so there will be lots of people who will say, oh, that's going to go away. They said that about the internet too. Or social media, oh, that's going to be a flash in the pan. That's not going to last long. And they were wrong. So there will be a lot of people who will tell you it's crazy or we don't get it or whatever. The only important thing is that you get it and that you know who your customer is and you know what your product or this technology is going to do to change things. And then at some point you better figure out how you can communicate it to people so they do understand it. But just because someone doesn't understand it and tells you it's crazy and they don't get it isn't a valid reason to stop. But if there's an advisor who's taken the time to learn it and they are telling you things about your business model, your pricing, you should probably have open ears about that.
So there's a question, or that's something popped in my head, because a lot of people, some very successful entrepreneurs will tell you that we didn't necessarily have a business plan, we didn't write a business plan starting out. How important is it to have a written out business plan before you embark on the entrepreneurship journey?
So I always tell people to have done a business model canvas. Are you familiar with that term?
Business model canvas. I have a vague idea of what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's a one-page canvas, and we actually print them really large sometimes, so that we can use Post-it notes and fill them in without writing. Something about writing. If you write it, if you know you have to write it, and especially if it's in ink, people are reluctant to put an idea down. So initially you want to just throw ideas on the canvas and not be worried about is it good. You don't want to be evaluating it. So the Post-it notes make people feel like they can put it there because they can take it back, right? So the business model canvas is a literal boxes that allow you to map out every aspect of the business that you need to think through. At that point, you can make an investor pitch. Investor pitches should probably only be about 10 slides, 20 minutes, so they're pretty short and to the point. But you'll know everything you need for that pitch if you have filled out the business model canvas. You'll have a pretty good idea of whether or not you have a viable business if you filled out the business model canvas. You'll know what partnerships you're going to have to strike. You're going to know what your cost structure is, all in general terms based on this business model canvas. And you can also go a step further and build a whole business plan from the business model canvas. So I tell someone, no matter what, and when you're starting out, do the business model canvas. You can actually download that for free from a website called Strategizer. And Strategizer is spelled STRAGYZER. So it's got a Y in there, so it's kind of weird. But if you go there, you can create a free account, and of course they want you to do some other things too that are free. But the free account will allow you to download the business model canvas. There's a book called the Business Model Generator that you can buy also online. But when you download that, you can start writing, who are my business partners? What are my key activities? What's my cost structure? What's my revenue model? What's my value proposition? Who's my target customer? And if you have that all filled out, you have a pretty good foundation for starting your business plan. So you might go on to pitch to an investor, whether that's a VC or an angel investor, or If you're going to go to a bank, they're going to want a business plan. You're going to have to go to the formality of making a business plan because they're not going to lend to you without it. So at some point, if you're going to need bank lending, that's going to be sooner than later. If you start your business, you probably want to put together a business plan with marketing and the whole thing so that it becomes a roadmap for implementation. But initially, you could get by with just having a really good pitch and having done the business model, know what your value proposition is, and move forward. So it really, if you do pitch, you'll probably have an executive summary. They're going to want to see predicted financials, but that still doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a full, you're not going to hand them a 40-page, document, because they're not going to read it either. So it kind of.
We are gradually coming to the end of the interview, but I'd like us to close with this. It's a game. It's called Just a Word.
Okay.
I'll ask you 5 questions, and you
Okay.
answer with just one word, not more than a word. So the first question is describe your personality.
Okay, so this is a hard question, but if
You already failed. I said just a word. Okay, let me take it again.
Okay.
Will you stick to
Uncommon.
uncommon?
Uncommon.
Okay. What do you think about Nigeria?
Welcoming.
Describe the current president of USA.
A catalyst.
Favorite city in the world?
Des Moines, my home. It is.
Great. One person I'll dislike. One person I'll dislike.
Insincerity.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Professor Laura, for coming through. I appreciate your time. I
No
learned a lot
problem.
myself. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
There's a dance that is very popular in Nigeria.
Okay.
We'll stand up now, and in just a minute, we'll try to replicate
Oh.
that dance.
I'm gonna dance?
Yes, you'll dance.
Okay.
It's called the Shaku Shaku dance. Could you say that? The Shaku Shaku dance.
Shaku Shaku dance.
Shaku
Shaku Shaku dance.
Shaku
Okay.
Shaku dance.
Oh
So
my goodness.
you go, it has a lot of attitude. You give it a lot of attitude. Okay.
Okay.
Move the legs. And then you go, you bring out one hand,
Okay.
the next hand, and you take it one hand back. So, yes.
And the other one?
Yeah, and then the other one. You're teaching me. You did it very well.
I tried.
Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
for teaching me.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you
Thank
too.
you for
To the YouTube channel. The link is on the screen right now. See you again next time. Bye bye. My name is Daniel Young.
Bye.